Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always, here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go for a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. So grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. This week's episode, we'll be going over kind of the best and worst moments that I've experienced in WoW. These are something that I've probably brought up from time to time, very shortly, but I'm kind of just going to go through them and see if you can relate to any of them. You obviously, or everyone has had their best and worst moments in the game, whether it be in the game or out of the game, because some of these are technically out of the game, but they are related to the game as well. But I do want to start off by apologising. This episode is a tiny bit late coming out. It's mainly because the file got a little bit messed up, so I'm having to re-record it and stuff like that. It's not great, but hey, I'm really sorry about it, and I've released it as early as I could. But yeah, let's get straight into the weekly news. We have Strunran, who is the world boss in... Oh god, where is it? Onaran Plains, that's the one. He's located in the bottom right, as well as the Kali Elders, who are still located in the Zaralak Caverns on the very far left. They drop pieces of gear and they can help you towards certain quests for the region, but they are not necessary like the ones in Shadowlands. Dragonflight bonus, or Dragonflight dungeon event, is your bonus, as well as pet battle bonus. I think these are a pairing now, these two. Whenever one pops up as a bonus event, the other does as well. As, they're not necessarily the biggest to stand alone, but they're still not like very small ones. So they're a nice little pairing to go with each other for bonus events. Gravity Lapse is your, brawl for this week. Essentially, it is a either storm only, and every 30 seconds you get flung up into the air and sent flying. It's quite a cool little take on either storm, and it kind of matches the vibe of it, where there's a lot of you're in Outland, so it's kind of like a lot of anti-gravity stuff happening out there anyway. So yeah, Gravity Lapse is very fun, and I would very much recommend it if you want to have a chill time. Tyrannical, Volcanic, and Sanguine are your mythic fixes for this week. Tyrannical, the bosses and the mobs that they spawn have increased health and damage. Volcanic, simple, a small little volcano will appear under your feet. Simply move away from it. It's not going to, kill you, but it will interrupt any spell casting and knock you up into the air, so it's kind of a nuisance. And Sanguine, everyone loves a bit of Sanguine. When a mob dies, it leaves behind a pool of blood. Essentially, you want to move the mobs out of this pool, and you do not want to stand in it. It does a lot of damage, and it will heal the mobs as well, so definitely wouldn't recommend this at all. We're going to be looking at the Claws of Ursok, another druid artifact, legendary? No, just artifact weapon. Yeah, it wasn't a legendary, it was just an artifact weapon. Obviously, the Claws of Ursok being the demigod, the bear demigod. There were two of them, Ursok and Ursol. They were both brothers, and they both had, one was kind of offense, one was defense, and they're very cool lore characters, I'm not going to lie. But we have the powers here, so Adaptive Fur, taking elemental damage, has a chance to grant you 10% damage reduction for 15 seconds against elementals that cause the damage. That's not bad. That's more of a Mythic Plus affix, I would say. Bear Hug, increases the chance to trigger Gore by 5%. Gore was I believe, for your maul damage, so I believe that's not too bad. Bestial Fortitude, increases stamina by up to 4% if you have 4 ranks in it. Bloody Paws, Thrash reduces the movement speed of targets by 50% for 6 seconds. That's really good. That's a permanent, 50% slow in PvP. That's kind of insane. Embrace of the Nightmare, while Rage of the Sleeper is active, you deal 25% increased damage, gain 25 increased leech, and are immune to all effects that cause CC. Okay? Rage of the Sleeper, being the main spell that you get, essentially it's a 1 minute cooldown, and it's kind of like a giant Thorns ability. But yeah, it's a 1 minute cooldown that just increases your damage, essentially. Gory Fur, Mangle has a 15% chance to reduce the rage cost of your next Iron Fur or Mark of Ursul by 25%. Iron Claws, increase your armor by 5%, very simple. Jagged Claws increases damage dealt by Thrash by 40% at max rank. Mauler increases the critical chance of your maul by 20%. 20% increased crit chance is insane, by the way, on specific spells. Perpetual Spring reduces the cooldown of Barkskin by 12%. So here's what Rage of the Sleeper is. Unleash the Rage of Ursoc for 10 seconds, preventing 25% of all damage you take and reflecting it as nature damage back to your attacker. It was very, very good. If you do this against like an Affliction Warlock, essentially the Affliction Warlock will kill themselves. It's actually hilarious. Reinforced Fur. Iron Fur increases the armor by an additional 20%. Roar of the Crowd. Stampeding Roar increases movement speed by an additional 5% per ally hit, up to 25% max. These are all mainly mythic pluses and, raid powers, essentially. Sharpened Instincts. Survival Instincts reduces all damage you take by an additional 12%. Ursoc's Bond. Increase your armor by 6%, essentially. Ursoc's Endurance. Increase the duration of Barkskin, Iron Fur, a Mark of Ursel by 0.5 seconds. 0.5 seconds seemed very underwhelming. Vicious Bite. Increase the damage dealt by Mangle by 28%. And finally, Wild Flesh. Increase the healing done by Frenzy Regen by 20%. A lot of these were based around, obviously, Mythic Plus and raiding, purely because there weren't many tanks in PvP. You didn't see a lot of them, and there's reasons for that. But yeah, Claws of Ursoc, again, they have very huge lore significance, just because of the god that they are actually, for, essentially. But there's not much to them in terms of their artifact power. It was very much based around PvE and nothing more. The lore of a lot of these weapons is probably what I should be going over. I'll try and have a look at the lore a little bit next time and see how it feels for everyone. But we can start off with the Scythe of Elune or something, because some of these are really lore heavy. These artifact weapons. Others obviously not, but yeah, it is what it is. But let's get straight into the main focus of this episode, the best and worst moments. So I've got down 5 here. I've got down 5 because I can't really gauge it. In terms of how long I'll talk about them, I could probably go on I could probably go on about them for a while. But essentially, the first one that I ever remember and the first one that I have very fond memories of is killing the Lich King. So I started back in probably middle Burning Crusade. I obviously didn't know what I was doing. I was needing on every single piece of gear that was dropping in dungeons, and apparently I was getting slated for it. Who knows? I'm pretty sure that was a made-up story, because I was clearly carrying everyone through the dungeon at the age of, how old would I have been? 8? Yeah, probably about that. But essentially, what I remember, the very first thing that I remember is going into Icecrown Citadel back in probably 2009, I think it was released, something like that. I distinctly remember this patch because it was when they released Halls of Reflection, Pit of Sauron, and what was the other? Forge of Souls, I believe. These are the 3 bosses or the 3 dungeons that accompanied Icecrown Citadel. And I remember getting into many pugs week after week, and basically not getting a lot of luck with it, because obviously WoW was still relatively new. It was 5 years old at this point. People weren't the greatest at the game still. They weren't for probably another couple of expansions when everything got very much streamlined, and you're looking at loads of weak auras, loads of add-ons and stuff like that. Loads of people had default UIs, all of that good stuff. But yeah, a lot of these pugs failed, and I remember getting into one of them that just needed to kill, Sindragosa and Lich King. And I was like, okay, I'll tag along for that. I was on my druid. I believe I was a feral druid at the time, all in PvP gear, obviously, because, all I did was PvP. But I joined with my younger sister, and essentially what had happened was we killed Sindragosa and we went up to the Lich King. This is a 25-man raid, by the way, so this is loads of stuff. We're in separate rooms of the house, playing. We kill the Lich King, and I say we kill it. It took us like quite a while to just kill the Lich King and stuff. It took us like 5 attempts maybe, and that was like a lot of explaining and people dispelling at wrong times, people literally just falling off the edges of the map, because you know how he does the like, I forget what it's called, but essentially he stabs a sword into the middle of the platform. You can't be in the middle of the platform, and then when that channel has finished casting, he collapses the edge of the platform. I remember that you can't be on the edge of the platform, and so many people died to it. They just didn't move in, and I don't understand how it was possible not to do that. Like, they just fell, and it was hilariously, like, stupid. Now, during this phase, people spawned ads, essentially. He would pick someone random, and they would spawn a copy of themselves. You just wanted people to be stacked up a little bit. But there would always be one person who would run the other side of the map, and essentially they would just spawn all the way over there, get punched by their, like, clone, essentially, and would be a person down. It was hilarious. I remember these frozen orbs coming from the Lich King in this phase as well, and Ranged had to deal with it, because if the frozen orb managed to get to the group, it would just explode and push everyone back. You would see so many people fly off the edge. It was amazing to see. I'm not going to lie. It was one of the most enjoyable things to see in the game. Make sure you're not caught out with it in Wrath Classic, by the way. It is quite funny. You can maybe troll someone. A Death Knight can maybe grip it in. I would love to see that, just to troll people. But yeah, essentially don't get hit by the orbs. But I remember this as being one of my very first memories of World of Warcraft, and I remember it quite fondly, to be honest. I remember doing Ice Crown whenever I could on my druid, on this little pleb, PvP feral gear druid that did no damage, no idea what I was pressing. I remember doing it in Boomkin form, or Boomkin at one point, and I remember in the very first room of Ice Crown, you have loads of mobs, you have loads of patrols that happen. We ran straight through the middle, as you usually do in Ice Crown. Run straight through the middle, and I press Starfall. Everyone knows why that's a bad thing to do. So essentially, I pulled everything in that very first room and wiped the entire raid. It was very good, and I felt very proud of myself, I'm not going to lie. But yeah, I didn't do that again, and I'm definitely going to do that when Wrath Classic comes out. Even though I'll be in bear form, tanking it, I'll want a Boomkin to do that. I think it would be hilarious to see. So this is obviously one of the better moments that I have found in World of Warcraft during my, however many years, I'm not going to do the maths quickly because it will make me feel old, however many years of playing the game. Now, one bad thing, one of the worst memories that I have is actually being, banned. Now, I didn't get banned for doing anything illegal. Well, they deemed it illegal, but it wasn't. So essentially, my friend and I play Classic. It's a friend that I've known for years. I've known him since, I think, at the very least, Mr. Pandaria. So whenever that was released, I was in a guild with him. We chatted, we chilled. It wasn't a very active guild. People started to leave, and, there were problems with guildies in terms of IRL stuff. So we were on most of the time, and we would get to chatting. And essentially what had happened, over the course, we'd chat less and less, but we're still Battle.net friends. And we ended up on the same Classic realm together. And after, I think at the very end, Phase 5, very late Phase 5, Phase 6, Nax coming out, what he decided was he was going to quit for a bit. Several months, and then come back later. So he passed me pretty much everything that he had. So he had arcane crystals, which were selling quite a lot. He had pretty much anything of value, plus all of the gold that he had. And the gold that he had at the time was around 800 gold. In Classic, that's very, very good. And this isn't including all of the expensive items that he gave, like the arcane crystals and such. But essentially, what that triggered, because he traded it to me, I'm pretty sure. He didn't send it via mail. He just traded me the gold. So essentially, what this triggered in the Blizzard system is an auto bot, and this auto bot actually banned me for buying gold. That is the reason that I was banned, and this ban lasted several days. I'm pretty sure it took several days. I put in a ticket. Obviously, I didn't get a reply for a very long time, It took a few days, and by that time I was like, okay, there must be another way. So there's a live chat system. It's only active between, I think, a couple hours, like 2 and 4, or like 12 and 2, something like that. And essentially I went on there and spoke to someone about what had happened. And it got fixed within that day of them, within talking to them, because I explained the situation, and it was very much, oh, okay, yeah, you just kind of got auto-banned because it said that you were buying gold, because this is a really dodgy thing happening. And it's like, really? Come on. People don't... If people buy gold, they're buying tens of thousands of gold. They're not buying 800 gold. It's absolutely ludicrous that the, system picked up on that much amount of gold being traded was a breach. And the thing is, this is because the gold that is in Classic, back in the day, back in 2004, 5, and 6, essentially wasn't as... I was rich. I would have been deemed rich in World of Warcraft Vanilla back in the day with about 1,000 gold. But people in WoW Classic now, back when we were doing NACs and stuff, had tens of thousands of gold, because they had either bought it, people were doing GDKPs where the gold was shared out and people weren't buying anything from these GDKPs. So essentially people were just stacking gold, and what was deemed rich back in 2004, 5, and 6 is now deemed poor, because of just how effective people have gotten at farming gold, at farming anything. Because back in the day, people didn't do Diamond East jump runs for solo stuff. What a Diamond East run is, essentially you go and clear a boss or two, you open up the last boss, and you run behind him, and basically go and mine these thorium veins to try and get some arcane crystals. People back in the day wouldn't have been able to do that. They didn't have the knowledge to do that. They weren't as... They didn't have the knowledge to do it, essentially. Like I just said, they didn't have the tactics on how to do it. They didn't have the prowess on how to do it. They didn't have the PCs to do it, essentially, because if your PC just shut down, people would call on the phone and you get DC'd from dial-up. Honestly, they couldn't take that risk of just dying in there. It was absolutely ludicrous, because if they died, they would have to pay a repair bill, and that repair bill is a lot of gold back then. So yeah, I got banned for, I think, anywhere between 3 and a week, 3 to 7 days, I can't remember exactly, for buying gold. I don't know why I did it like that. I'm doing the thing with the fingers, just say that I'm quoting someone, that's it. But yeah, it's absolutely ludicrous that got picked up as cheating when the amount of bots that were in the game didn't get picked up or, looked at for a very, very long time, essentially. And it goes to show that gold was easier to make than people believe, because bots were farming it. That's how insane it was. You just run around Eastern Plaguelands mining some minerals, go put them on the auction, and that's it. It's absolutely crazy. Another thing that was one of the best moments in WoW for me was actually ranking in Classic WoW. It took a while. Obviously, this is 2020, so World of Warcraft Classic came out in 2019, and the ranking scene went kind of crazy in 2020 because of a very small thing called a global pandemic. But essentially, it's when I decided to rank as well. Now, I could have ranked at any time. It's kind of unfortunate when I did rank because, well, obviously the pools are a bit bigger, the bracket pools, so it took a little bit longer. But I wasn't going for rank 14. I wanted to go to rank 10, and essentially, I think it's 10. No, I went to rank 11 because I wanted the mounts, because the mounts were very prestigious to me. It's like, oh, I've managed to do this, and, it's very proud. I'm very proud of myself. Not many people have done this. So ranking to rank 11 was actually one of the best moments, purely on the basis that it's something that I could grind for and constantly had a purpose to log into the game. And I think that's what you need in WoW. You need a purpose to log into the game, and that was mine. So I'd slowly go through the ranks. When I got to rank 10, I was really happy, and it's kind of reinvigorated because you had all of the pieces for the PvP set. So I had all of the like major like pieces, which is very cool. And, it kind of gives you that extra boost to just go on and push for that rank 11 spot. And that's what I eventually did. I got my tiger. I got all of them, actually. Yeah, which, I definitely bought all of them, I'm pretty sure. Did I? I can't remember. I definitely have the Elic, that's what I know, and the tiger. But on my mage, in Classic, I had about 4 or 5 mounts. And this is quite rare in the game, and one of them obviously being a bit more prestigious than the others, that you can ride into raid with the next week. It's like, yeah, I've got this, only 1 or 2 other people in the guild have it. I'm kind of... I'm proud of it, and it's something that you can show off. It's not something that will get replaced like gear. Like, the PvP gear is cool, but it will get replaced. It will, because it's just not as good as, like, raid gear if you go into Anchorage or Naxxramas, that kind of deal. So this is a very simple one, but in terms of one of my best moments. And there were a lot of times when it was just so boring. Outreach Valley weekends, if you don't... Like, Alliance had such a disadvantage that it was unreal. And eventually, if you didn't, like, win the very first fights at Iceblood Graveyard, you didn't win the battleground. Like, Horde were adamant to keep you there for as long as they could, purely on the basis that their queue time for AV was about 40 minutes, whereas our queue time was about 1 minute. If you got Russians in your Outreach Valley, you were so lucky, because Russians just ran past and ignored everyone. They did a base race, which is really cool. Essentially, you just race to the enemy's base. Whoever kills them first kills them. And that's what Alliance dreamed of. They didn't want to be stuck in like 3-hour-long Outreach Valleys and stuff like that. And you obviously had people who were there for the reputation. And that's what annoyed me. It's like, oh my god, guys, make sure you turn these in. And they were trying to, like, prolong the game, the people who wanted the rep, which I get, I understand, because you want the rep, you want to kill Horde, you want to get the pieces to turn in for the quest for the rep, and then you can buy your gear. But people who were ranking, like, it was such a kick in the balls to them, because it's, okay, this one's lost, let's just go next, and it was a real drop in your honor per hour, and you wanted the most honor per hour to, be done with the day, essentially, the day of, like, ranking. But it was really rough. It was really rough, some of these days. Other days it was very fun. Walton Gulch weekends were quite fun, although you did run into some pre-mades. You just sort of pissed about, had fun. I was a mage, so I enjoyed my time, like, killing a lot of warriors. It wasn't like I was using FAPs off cooldown, like free action potions and stuff like that. But yeah, it was good fun, but there were also very much some lows in there as well. Another, like, good or one of the best moments that I've had is very recent. I say recent. It's about a year and a few months ago. It was Shadowlands Season 2. And essentially, this is the first season where I really tried to push for something in Arena. So previously, ever since I started playing back in Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King mainly is when I started my arenas. And since then, I was kind of very chilled with it. It's very much, oh, okay, I'll just do some 2s. I won't really, like, do much. I have no sort of aspiration for it. I just play it for the fun and enjoyment. So Shadowlands Season 1 was when I started to play a few 3s, like 3v3s, and I realised that I actually really enjoy this a lot more than just 2v2s. This is purely on the basis because of my class. If I was a warrior, I'd probably enjoy 2s more because it's just a lot easier, but playing a boomkin, it's very rough in 2v2s, I'm not going to lie. But I started to enjoy it a bit in Season 1 of Shadowlands, and I'd always stayed at the same sort of, like, rank or rating. I didn't really care. It was very much for fun, and, people that I played with, again, just played it for fun and enjoyment. In the Season 2, though, I was like, okay, like, there's an opportunity here to push for something. And essentially that's what I did. I made the decision with someone, and we managed to find a third through looking for group for a boomy Demon Hunter Shaman team. And essentially we pushed to Glad with that. Now, obviously, the inflation of the season does help. So Season 2 does have a massive inflation in terms of World of Warcraft's history, inflation being the rating gain. So Glad is 2.4, and it's quite tough to get 2.4, but we got 2.7 in that season, myself and the people that I was playing with. The people who were rank 1 got about 3.6, something like that. And to put it into perspective, Dragonflight Season 1, which has just passed, we are at about 1900, 2k, and people who are rank 1 were about 2600 to 2800. So it's really deflated. But if you go further into the details, essentially what you're looking at is we are the same rating. We would be a little bit higher rated in that Shadowlands Season 2 from where we are in Dragonland Season 1. Like, if you compare the ratings and you compare the leaderboards, we would have been higher in the leaderboards than what we were in that previous season, which is mad to think. But yeah, that is kind of the first time that I went and thought, okay, I can really push this. And it wasn't like a decision towards the end. It was more middle of the season when it's like, okay, there's a little bit of inflation. There's a possibility. And then obviously the inflation kept going and it was like, okay, yeah, this is a real possibility. And we pushed. We got about top 4K, I think, something like that in EU, which I'm very proud about and would like to definitely do again. Inflation is just making it very tough to do so. But essentially, it's good fun. It was very good fun, and it's one of the things that I've been very proud of. Again, it gives you another purpose to log on and to really grind and to look at your gameplay, because I've barely looked at my gameplay before, and it's like, oh, okay, I messed up here, this is what I could do better next time, etc. But it's one of them things where you don't really take into account what you need to do or what you can do at the time, but when I was playing before, it was very much, oh well, we lost, let's go next. It's very much, okay, I could have probably bared, or I could have shadow melded, I could have been closer to you for the link, I could have ran away from you so you didn't get CC'd as much. You're thinking about all of these different things, rather than just, oh well, let's go next. So getting Glad is obviously one of the biggest achievements in WoW, and I would very much like to do it again. I'm going to try to do it again, probably this season, next season, stuff like that. It is a very fun thing to aim for, especially with the rating and the squish of MMR right now, essentially, because it does make it a lot more challenging to get to that 2400 spot and more lucrative almost, which I think is a very good thing. But that is it for this episode. Thank you all very much for listening. As always, do check out the socials at Twitch, YouTube, constant stuff happening over there. Been doing a lot of streaming recently, mainly for Diablo, since it has just been released. So, leveling a druid, always fun. I say that, it's painful. But yeah, do check it out. Constant stuff happening over there. As well as support the channel, support Pig and Whistle with the link down below by Buzzsprout. It would show a massive gratitude for what I'm doing, and I just wouldn't be more thankful, honestly. But thank you all very much once again, and go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.